to be able to say that. Again, I'm Ryan Holman, superintendent of the school district. I'll start this meeting, but pretty quickly after the training, we're going to turn it over to someone who's going to be fortunate enough to be the chairperson of this group and then the vice chairperson. But all that is to say, just so grateful to all of you here to be able to do what is really unprecedented. And that is to be talking about a bond having been passed and upgrading our facilities as a result of the community saying yes to Measure J. So thanks so very much to all of you for saying yes to the Snowline Citizens Bond Oversight Committee for sure. Your agenda should be right at the beginning of your folder that was put together by Rachel Wazzy. Rachel, thanks so very much for all that great work. We so greatly appreciate you. And to that end here, if you don't mind, I'm just going to call this meeting to order right now at the time of, it looks like 6:07. So thanks to everyone for being here. And if you don't, right now, if you don't mind, all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Our flag's right here behind most of you. Right hand over your heart. Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, be seated. So again, thanks so very much to all of you for saying yes to this really powerful committee here, the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee here in Snowline Joint Unified School District. Let's just start, if you don't mind, with the welcome to all of you. If we can just introduce ourselves. I think we know your name just by virtue of where you're sitting here, but I think we just need to know, if you don't mind, your name and just how about your connection to Snowline, okay? Whatever that connection may be, right? So I'd love to hear that. As you're thinking about that, you know what, if I start right over there, Janet Molina, do you mind if you go first?
Sure. My name is Janet Molina. I am a parent, grandparent of children that have gone through Snowline. I'm also a former business owner in Finland. Just a pleasure to be here. I was on the Measure J bond committee and very excited when we were able to pass that bond and looking forward to working with everybody to make sure we do our due diligence.
So much. The next is
Mariah. Hi, I'm Mariah Ilescas, and I'm connected to the school district. I have 4 children that attend the schools here, and 1 more that might later on. I got a baby, so that's pretty much my connection to the community. I just want to see what changes we can make to help the kids.
so very much. Next to me is
Gina Mills. I graduated from Serrano High School, 1985. Yay! I have kids and grandkids. Kids are out of school now, but they did go through the system, and now grandkids.
I'm Rio Long, and I have 3 children that attend Snowline School District. I work in the community, and I serve on the Sunset Little League Board, so I pretty much spend all my time in the community with community members.
Thanks so much for being here. And then next is James.
Hi, my name is James Decker. I have 2 children in the school district. I have a 6th grader and a junior at Serrano High School. John and I at Wrightwood Elementary stood up the dogs program. Dads are great students. And my wife was a member of the PTG there for, I don't know, my boys were there for over 10 years. She's probably on the PTG for 8 of those 10 years. And she and I both now serve on the booster club for the Serrano band.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks for being here, James.
Hi, I'm Christian Turner. I'm an 03 grad. And I have 2 kids that go to Pena Mesa, and now I'm a business owner in the area. So, yeah, I just lived in the area my whole life. So,
Yeah, thanks for being here too, Christian.
My name is Pam Wright, and I'm a member of many organizations in Wrightwood, including the Wrightwood Property Owners Association, who is an advocacy organization protecting the property values and the quality of life in Wrightwood. And as a still school administrator, former school board member, former teacher, I really recognize the importance of education for the entire community and contributing to not only the individual student involved, but the quality of life for all of us and the community. So that's my connection.
Yeah, thanks.
My name is Kenny Funk. I I have 2 kids that graduated from the Snowline School District. I'm a former board member and I operate a business here in Wrightwood in the district.
My name is Anais Morales. I have 2 kids under Snowline. I was a delegate president for 2 years ago, and that is my connection with this school district.
Thanks.
Hello, I'm Lacey Ford. My connection to Snowline is we moved up here in 21, and my daughter was in the 9th grade. So she started 9th grade down the hill, and then we moved up here October, and she just graduated class of 25. So she's the awesome product of Snowline School District. And I have my 3rd grader here with us at Vista. So that's my connection. And I am on the PTO board member at her school.
Well, thanks so much, Lacey. Thanks to all of you. Hector Aparicio will obviously incorporate him into the meeting if he runs in just a little bit late here. We'll certainly do that. And the same goes for Syed there too in just a moment. So thanks so very much. Again, up on the screen is Katie Dobson, as we mentioned. We'll get to her in a moment. But as you look here on that agenda, let me just share with you. We're going to go through the election of officers. We'll go to public comments. You see the committee business on there. And then we'll do engage in those future agenda items and adjourn. And so I warned all of you it's coming. Yes, it's here. And that is the notion of trying to identify the election of a chairperson and also a vice chairperson. And so to that end, please know that the chairperson will very much run the meeting from this point forward, right? And so if there are people who have interest in doing that, we're certainly engaged in that. What I'll do is I'll call for nominations, right? Call for nominations of a chairperson of this group here. And we'll collect all of those nominations, and however many there are, then we'll, after we get all those nominations, we'll see if there's a motion to move forward anyone or all numbers of people, excuse me, and then we'll call for a vote on that. Okay, so to that end here is and as we think about this, we know we've got our wonderful alternates here too, so keep in mind that they're here just in the event that we have to replace any of the 9 over the course of this time. That whole notion of the motion process will be taking place in this group right here. So I'll leave it at that. Is there anyone who'd like to put forth a recommendation for someone to be considered as a chairperson of this group?
Kenny told me that he was a school board member here. I think the chairs are probably used to him. I'd like to nominate Kenny.
So we've got a nomination. There's one nomination. Any other nominations?
I nominate Gianna. And she's an old school graduate, got kids and grandkids that been here. I think she knows how to get everybody in line.
There we go. Thanks, Lacey. So for one for Gina Mills, and it sounds like another for Kenny Funk to be considered. Are there any others? So then I'd ask, call for anyone to move. Call for a motion for anyone in a second, and then we can do that for anyone, and then call for a vote. And if there's a majority, we can move forward. If not, we can move on to the next person.
I move to nominate Kenny Funk as our chairperson.
Here we go. So there's a second. Okay, so we do have a motion and a second. So I'll just call it, and I have to count here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of them here. So all in favor for Kenny Funk being our chairperson, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Well, it sounds like it passes unanimously. So we'll say congratulations to Kenny Funk here. And so Kenny.
You're a guy,
Can I
man.
have a good vice president right up there, too? Shall I nominate you, Jen?
Thank you.
I'll allow you to take over here, my friend.
Yeah.
I know he does have some skills in this area.
I move we adjourn.
Did you hear him, Dr. Bowman?
No, I missed that. What was that?
He moved to adjourn.
Oh, he did. Oh, gee. I did not hear
All right.
that.
I'd like to open the floor for nominations for a vice chair.
I move to nominate Jenna Mills as our vice chair.
Second.
Any others?
You say third?
We don't need third. All right. I'd like to call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. All right. Well, I'm not feeling well, so no, I'm just kidding. All right. Thank you, Madam Co-Chair. All right, that being said, I'd like to move on to public comments. All right, we'd like to hear from all third graders. Any third graders? Yes. Please, the floor is yours. Please state your name.
Serenity. My name is Serenity. Serenity Ford. That teachers need to pay more attention to students than their phones.
Duly noted. Thank you. Seeing there's no more public comment, we move on to item F, committee business, citizen oversight and general obligation bond process presentation. I see Ryan Holman for some direction with this.
Yeah, absolutely. Here at this point in time here, we've got the great fortune of having Katie Dobson here. She's our legal counsel. She's going to give us a presentation on the whole notion of a citizens oversight bond committee, and more specifically speak to the requirements of all of you here in this room here, what is entailed relative to your duties. And so with that, a huge thanks to you, Katie Dobson, for all your support getting us to this point, and you're going to get us through this process. And so thank you so very much again for being the voice of the training here that we'll go through. So I'll turn that back over to you right now.
Excellent. Thank you, Dr. Holman. I believe you all have in your binders a copy of my presentation, but should I also share it on the screen? Would that be helpful?
Please.
Okay.
And there it is.
Can y'all see that? Okay. Let me. All right. So hopefully that's all you see. And now I can't see you, but just if you have any questions, it is a presentation, but please interrupt anytime with questions. It can be very casual and conversational. So I can't see any of you now, but just yell out if there's any questions as I move along. So I'll start out with sort of a general background for you about general obligation bonds. Prior to the year 2000, school districts could only receive voter authorization with a 2/3 vote for a general obligation bond. And as you can imagine, with that higher threshold, there were many fewer successful bond issuances in the state of California. So at the November 7th, 2000 election, Prop 39 was adopted, which allowed school districts to receive a general obligation receive general obligation voter approval with a 55% vote rather than a 2/3 vote. And so there is much more success now, and the counterbalance of that is that there are a lot more accountability measures. So every successful bond election results in the formation of an oversight committee, and it also requires the district to cause the production of financial and performance audits. And so the intent behind these increased accountability measures are to ensure that vigorous efforts are undertaken to ensure the expenditure of bond proceeds are legal, to allow taxpayers to directly participate in the oversight of bond expenditures. Committees should promptly alert the public as to any waste or improper expenditure of bond funds, and any unauthorized expenditure should be investigated, prosecuted, and court should act swiftly to restrain any improper expenditures. So the composition of a committee, it was really great to hear all of your backgrounds. And I know each of you fits one of these categories. They're in front of you, so I won't read through them. But each of you fits into one of these roles. And there need to be at least 7 members on your committee. And I know that you also have some alternates, which is great. And it's great that the alternates are listening and actively involved as well. Conflicts are prohibited, and so that means no employees or officials of the district can serve on the committee. Also, no vendors, contractors, or consultants can be on the committee. So I'm hoping that none of you came tonight expecting to get paid. There's no compensation or financial interest, which is what we mean by conflict. So all of you should be independent from the district financially so that the public can feel secure that the district board is not essentially paying you to say that what they're doing is proper. So when you meet, you need to have a quorum, which is a majority of your committee. Your meeting should be open to the public and follow an agenda, as you've been doing. Minutes should be taken and prepared and then approved at the next meeting and made available on the website after approval. The law requires that you meet at least one time per year. However, the recommendation is that you meet frequently enough that you feel you can discharge your duty of reviewing and reporting. So in your time on the committee, you'll see that there are some times where the district is spending money faster than other times. So there will be busy expenditure periods when there are a lot of projects going on, and then there might be a while where money's not really going out the door and you don't need to meet as frequently. So I know tonight you're going to set a schedule, but you can always adjust that if you feel like you need to meet more frequently or less frequently, as long as you feel like you can discharge your duties as a committee member, and as long as you're meeting at least once a year. So this is directly from the Education Code. The purpose of the Oversight Committee shall be to inform the public concerning the expenditure of bond revenues. The Citizens Oversight Committee shall actively review and report on the proper expenditure of taxpayers' money for school construction. So you are a post-expenditure review committee. You look at bond proceeds after they've been spent to ensure the spending relates to voter-approved projects. And you inform the public by meeting, reviewing, and reporting. You're not a decision-making commission or board. The decisions regarding the projects, prioritizing the project, that all comes from the board of the district. So when you're reviewing these expenditures, district staff will attend meetings and report to you on what money they're spending, what projects are being done. And then what you'll do is confirm that those expenditures are for purposes permitted under Proposition 39 and the type approved by district voters on the ballot. So what I did as the district's counsel when we were drafting the ballot measure is ensure that everything on the project list is permitted under Proposition 39. So you don't need to worry about that, but you do need to make sure that everything that the district is spending money on is something that was approved by district voters. So I get a lot of questions about how specific that project list has to be. And I believe you all have a copy of the project list as well in your binder. That will come in very handy to you during your time on the committee. But one sort of rule when we're looking at this is that there are a lot of things that go into most projects. So let's say the district is going to build a new library. I'm just making this up. What we would say in the project list is something like construct a new library. We wouldn't say demolish existing structure, level the ground, do environmental reports. All of those things are considered part of the project because they are but for expenses. They would not exist but for the project. And so that's kind of a way to think about it. If you're saying, is this really part of the project or not? If that expenditure would not exist but for the project that is voter approved, then that's a proper bond expenditure. And there are just some examples here of things that come up frequently. And this also has been litigated in the state of California. So there is a legal standard that we have that I will read out to you. The critical factor in assessing whether the project list complied with Proposition 39 is whether it allows for meaningful approval and oversight of bond expenditures. Thus, if the list defines or identifies the projects in a manner that clearly apprises the voters, the auditors, and the public oversight committees of the types of project for which the money is intended to be used, that is sufficient. There are certain things, however, that are expressly prohibited under Prop 39. No teacher or administrative salaries, and of course, I immediately have a footnote here. There is an Attorney General opinion that allows for bond proceeds to be used to pay certain district employee salaries to the extent they're performing administrative oversight work on construction projects. So oftentimes, it can be more cost-effective to have somebody who's already on district staff spend half their time or a quarter of their time or something like that overseeing a project rather than bringing in an outside construction manager. And so that would be an allowable bond expenditure to allocate whatever percentage of that person's time they're spending overseeing the projects to the bond. No operating expenses. So no, air conditioning bills, things that are ongoing. This is meant to be for capital projects. And last, no cost incurred by the district for providing technical or administrative assistance to the committee. So you all should not see a bill for using the room tonight on the bond project list. So once you have, what will happen is that you're going to issue one report per year, and that summarizes the results of your review over the year. And if it is the case, confirming the district spent bond proceeds on the types of projects approved by district voters. I believe you also have a model annual report in your folder. And essentially every year you will receive the bond financial audit and performance audit that I mentioned earlier. Those are prepared by an outside auditing firm, and they have to be provided to the district by every March 31st for the previous fiscal year. So March 31st of next year, you're going to receive a report for the fiscal year that we just closed, June 30th. And so there's not going to be a lot for you to look at. But the next year, there are going to be a lot of projects done. And I know the district is starting to ramp up with the projects, which I believe you'll hear about this evening. So it'll be a little while before we have audited reports for you to look at when you're drafting your annual report. Once you've drafted your annual report, at least one member of the committee should present that in an open meeting to the district board, and it will also be posted on the district website. But if you feel during the year that you need to prepare any additional reports, you can do that at any time, and those can be presented to the board at any time. And so that's something that you all can discuss in your review if you feel that it's more helpful to do more than one annual report a year, but you do need to do at least one annual report. And then all agendas, minutes, and reports should be posted on the website and available to the community. And I will mention the Brown Act briefly. So the Brown Act is a very long, complicated law with a lot of nuances, but essentially what you should know is that your meetings should be open to the public. So the district will provide you a room and any assistance you need to hold these open public meetings. It's great you already had some public comment. And so essentially the advice is to refrain from discussing oversight committee business outside of a meeting. And that includes via email or through phone calls. And so, like I mentioned, there are a lot of nuances. So for example, if you're talking with one other committee member on the way out to your car, that's okay. But if a group of you are together, you run into each other socially or something like that, you should refrain from discussing any committee business. That should all be done in an open public forum. And that is all that I have in my presentation. Now I can see you all again. Can I answer any questions?
I did have a question.
Sure.
You mentioned that this money doesn't go towards like air conditioning or something like that. So is that basically along the lines of if it needs an upgraded system, that would be from different funds, not from this?
Sorry, air conditioning was just an example. So
Okay.
air conditioning is infrastructure. You can absolutely replace air conditioning units at buildings.
Okay.
I meant no operating expenses. So you shouldn't be seeing like monthly electric bills of the district on the bond expenditure list. And so electricity that goes towards the construction, that's fine. But the money is really meant for these specific capital projects and not for ongoing expenditures of the district, like bills and teacher salary and things like that.
Okay, that's much better to understand. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for clarifying that.
I have a couple questions. I think they're probably more for you, Ryan. Who is taking notes?
Yeah, thanks. See back there, Rachel Wasley's taking notes for us.
thought so.
I know, isn't that helpful for sure?
Okay.
So thanks for checking on that there, Chairperson Plum.
And then second, is there somebody on staff who we are paying to do the accounting?
The accounting, yeah, and actually we'll be able to speak to that in a little bit here, right?
Okay.
So we sure can speak to that, and someone on staff who's staffed by us here in Snowline.
Okay, I didn't
In
know
fact, yeah, and so in a bit we're going to hear from Bill Flynn, and so yeah, he'll be able to speak to that and introduce her too. So thanks for sharing that there or asking about that.
Perfect. And does anybody have any questions or concerns about the Brown Act? Basically, talk about it in here. We can't go hang out together. Talk about it. Any other questions for Katie?
I think this is more for Ryan. I don't know that I see a project list in here. Is that?
Yeah, that'll be coming up. We'll share with that at the end of the meeting here, everything that's planned at this point and get an overview from Bill Flynn. He's our chief business official. And so they'll have a presentation coming up right in, I guess it would be F3. Yeah, there. To be able to share. He's got a presentation. We'll hand those right out here for Member Turner. Great questions all.
Well, we still have Katie. Any more questions?
If you think of anything as time goes on, Dr. Holman can reach out to me anytime, so please don't hesitate to ask. And the last thing I'll just say is thank you all for being here this evening. You're really providing the district with an important service, and they would not be able to manage their bond program successfully without your participation. So thank you.
Thank you.
Katie?
Thank you, Katie.
Yes, thanks everyone.
All right. It says we go to F2, but I'm not sure we're ready to establish a meeting schedule until we kind of know what we're looking at. So I don't know if we want to suspend 2 and move to 3. What do you guys think? I don't know. What are we planning for? I think we should hear more about what we're doing before we start just planning meetings. Unless you guys want to meet daily and yeah, right. So with committee approval, I say we just go right to F3 and start to hear what business we're doing and then kind of see what we're doing and then go back to F2. Are you guys comfortable with that?
I'll second that.
Yeah, okay. So let's move to F3. Dr. Holman, I turn it to you to turn
I'd be more than happy to introduce him. So our chief business official is Bill Flynn here, and Bill Flynn's done just a great job overseeing the work thus far. There's a lot of work to be done when we think about $70.6 million, Measure J. That's what was approved by the voters, but we've also been benefited by Proposition 2, which ends up being an escalator of our funds. And so there's just a whole lot of great news to be sharing with all of you. Bill Flynn will present. Now, what I'll do real quickly, though, is you can see it's up on the screen. I've got hard copies here, too, that we can pass along here, just so you can follow along if that helps you there. It'll be able to, as Member Turner mentioned earlier, you can tuck it in the folder if that helps you later on there. But what our chief business official, Snowline here, Bill Flynn, will be able to do is share with you everything that we've been doing in the areas of facilities specific to modernizing and upgrading Snowline. Snowline's been in existence for 43 years, and we've been grateful for all those years. But even at this point in time, it's the first time ever that we've had funds from our public to be able to spend on upgrading what is very much needed here in Snowline. I'll just end by saying this: one of our core values is fiscal responsibility. It speaks to ourselves being good stewards of the funds. And I love when Katie Dobson mentioned at the very end the importance of this committee, because it's all of you who will be able to say, truly better than anyone when we think about facilities, are we as the administration and all of Snowline being good stewards of the funds here. So it really begins tonight, and it begins with this presentation right here. So Bill, I see you behind me here. I'll kind of get out of the way and speak to all that good work you're doing. We can, obviously talk about Andy here in a moment too. So thanks, Bill.
Yeah, absolutely. So as was mentioned, the bond was passed. Bub, if you want to move on to that next slide. So 70.6 million, but the district doesn't automatically get 70.6 million, right? It comes out in different disbursements over a period of years based upon property values, right? Because as part of the bond, it couldn't go over $40 per 100,000 of assessed value. And so the investment groups make all those determinations looking at what is the property values in the district, the assessed value, so how much bonds can be sold interest rates, all that sort of a thing. And so they put out a schedule, and it was basically kind of this schedule about, 30, 20, 17, and then the balance coming out in 31. And that was based upon kind of a conservative projection of how property values would continue to increase based upon the history that we've seen. So it's a lot of stuff to think about, but the short version is that we have that 29,815,000, right? That happened in the spring of 25. And so I think right around May, the beginning of May, the money actually went into the district funds. And so then the next disbursement that we'd be looking at is out in spring of 27. And then spring of 29. And I'm kind of hoping and thinking that when we get spring of 29, we won't actually really need to do a fourth one in 31. I'm hoping that because they had a conservative projection of the property value increases, we can get just the rest of it in spring of 29. But those will adjust depending, right? If we did have some sort of a downturn and property values went down, we might not be able to get 20 in the spring of 27. So it's all kind of just depends as we get to those situations, right? And so, and again, if there's questions, ask them as I'm going along here. I know it's a lot of information.
Is the adverse true if property values swing up? Is there more cash coming?
We could get more sooner. Yeah. It doesn't increase the total, right? But we, instead of getting 20 at the next disbursement, maybe 25, maybe 30. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, Bub, if you go on to that next slide. This one sort of, when I say the district received the funds, right? The district doesn't actually have a bank account. Not really. Not in the traditional sense of we have a checkbook and we can write checks and it goes into the bank. All district funds go to the county of San Bernardino. And we process requests for payment for anything and everything. And the county of San Bernardino actually processes and pays those checks. And so payroll, everything, anything that happens is processed through the county. And at the county, we sort of have different buckets. They call them funds. So it's a fund accounting system. And so like Fund 01 is our general operating expenses, the revenue we receive for regular attendance, ADA. That's where we pay the electric bills. That's where we pay salaries. That's where we pay all of the regular operating expenses. They come out of Fund 01. So when we process a payment here on our end, transmit that down to the county when we're requesting things, they're looking at that, right? If we're requesting to pay a salary and we request to pay it out of a Fund 21, which is the bond proceeds, they'll send back to us and say, you can't do that, right? So there's already a layer of accountability built into where the money is actually sitting. Now we have a lot of different funds. I've listed 4 of them up there. One is the general fund. The other being Fund 21. That's where that 29,815,000 is sitting right now. And then Fund 25, another one that's going to be a part of the projects, not really under the oversight, but just so you understand, that's where like school fees go. So when someone builds a new house and they pay their school fees, it doesn't go into Fund 01, it goes into Fund 25, which is specifically for facilities projects as well. And then the other part of the equation, because we have modernization projects that have been in line with the state of California, and I'll talk a little bit more about that, we're going to get some state matching dollars on our projects. And that's another fund itself. That's Fund 35. So again, these aren't all the funds we have, but these are kind of the ones that we'll be dealing with mostly in all of our facilities projects. Does that make sense on how that kind of works? Any questions or anything? Yeah.
Has it been communicated to the district? I know that the bond for the education bond passed, right? So has it been communicated to us how much matching funds we're going to get?
Yes. Actually, Bub, if you move on to the next slide.
Oh, okay.
You were reading my mind. You knew what I was going to go to next, right? So with state With facility projects for school districts, there is a process to get some money from the state of California. So at the last election, when Measure J passed, you also got to vote on Prop 2 at the state level, which was a facilities bond for the state. So when a school district applies for money from the state to either build a new facility and or modernization, those are the two types of projects, right? You kind of get in line with your project, and then when there's money in the state pot, which is only through state bonds, which they hadn't done in quite a while, so that pot had been empty for a long time. We had been already sitting in line with 8 modernization projects. So the way that works is we get the architect to design a modernization project. We submit it to the Division of State Architect, called DSA. They approve the project. Then we put that in line with the Office of Public School Construction, the OPSC, right? Lots of acronyms, and we love them in education. And so Snowline had these 8 projects sitting in line for several years, waiting for funding. And so with the passage of Measure J and the passage of Prop 2 at the state level, we had our portions of the funds and the state had their portion of the funds. And so this list shows the projects that we're looking at utilizing the Measure J bond funds for. And 8 of those, so you see the Serrano modernization, and then there's a couple there that are associated with Serrano. There's some dollars we've set aside for upgrading of some of the CTE classrooms. And then also one that we're still kind of looking at, which is the redoing the track and the field at the high school as well. Those aren't modernization projects, so they don't have a state match, but they are part of what we're looking at utilizing some bonds funds for. But then the others are all modernization projects. So Baldy Mesa Elementary, Chaparral, which is over here, are non-traditional schools, Pinion Hills Elementary School, Quail Valley Middle School, Wrightwood Elementary School, Pinion Mesa Middle School, and Phelan Elementary School. They're all have modernizations that have been waiting in line. And now they're funded by the state according to where they're at in line. And so the oldest one, the one that has been in line the longest for us, is the Serrano modernization. And so that one, we have received notification that we've been approved for funding. We haven't actually received the dollars yet. We're very close. We keep waiting any moment for them to actually release that portion of the dollars. But as you can see up there, that state portion that they would give us is that $17,703,000. Now, how they calculate that, if you look, we have a cost estimate for that modernization right now, which is the $41 million. And so the state is going to give $17,700,000. Normally what they do is they give you an eligibility, what you're eligible for. They give a dollar amount that they say we're eligible for in total. And then they pay 60% of that dollar amount, and we're supposed to come up with the rest. Well, obviously, as you can see, that we're paying more than 40% for the Serrano modernization, but that's very often how it is. So the state looks at our what we're eligible for, what they look at the project and say, here's what we're going to give you. So they said, hey, it's, I think it's 29 or 31 million. Yeah. And, but then we have to go and actually get real values on what construction companies will do the project for and those sorts of things. So it's more. So we're paying, we either reduce the scope of the project and or we can put more towards completing that project. And so for the Serrano modernization, the Baldy Mesa, Chaparral, and Pinion Hills, and also Quail Valley, those total costs are projections that have been done by our construction management company. So we have a construction management company that is working with us through the entire process of all of these modernizations, and they do cost estimates. So that's what those are, is those cost estimates by our construction management company. They aren't actually bid out. So those dollars will change as we go and bid out those projects.
Could you, maybe you said it and it just went over my head, but can you explain the source of the district cost? Is that the Measure J, or there are other things combined in that?
No, right now that would be the Measure J.
Okay,
Yes, yeah.
not developer fees or anything else?
I mean, we can utilize those funds for that, but right now what we've been looking at is this would be some of the Measure J costs, yeah. Because there are actually some other costs associated with the Serrano modernization above the 41 million, and those I'm looking at for either general fund and or the Fund 25, the school fees, yeah. Yeah.
So you have the total cost and then you have the district cost and then the state matching. But what if the state matching provides a surplus because we don't spend all of that from the total cost? Where does that money go?
Well, the only reason we'd have any kind of surplus from the state match is if our total construction cost was less than the total eligibility, right? So like for the Serrano modernization, our eligibility from the state is far less than 41 million, right? So we'd spend that whole 17.7.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
I guess I'm looking at, for example, Quail Valley.
Quail,
The
yes.
total cost
Yes.
was 6 million. The district is going to provide 4.7, but then the state's going to provide 7. So that's a $5 million surplus, right? So where does that go?
Well, one of the things we're looking at with that one is because that 6.1 million for the Quail is our cost estimate based on what's in the modernization plan. What we want to do next with our construction management company is look at where can we kind of increase so that we don't waste any of that $7 million. Yeah. So there's limitations to that. We may not be able to get to that total number. But if we did have money that we didn't spend, if it was part of the 7 million, it goes back to the state.
Oh, that's
Okay.
Yeah.
So is this the total projects projected up until 2031, or is this just the beginning?
Yeah, these are just the ones that we already had. Yeah.
Okay.
And
I
so
was
you
just
can.
wondering if there were some other schools going to fall, because like Heritage, Vista, they're not on here. So
They aren't eligible for modernization funds yet, right? A school has to be, I believe it's over 25 years old
They're
to
still new?
even
Okay.
start getting in line. Yeah. Yeah, they're getting close. They're getting very
Okay.
close, but you can't even get in line until the school's older than 25 years.
okay,
So that's why those two weren't already in line.
Okay.
Yeah.
that's what I was
Yeah.
wondering.
And the thing with getting in line is like, even if we got in line now, like let's say they turned 25 today and we got them in line now, there's no more Prop 2 money left. It's all accounted for. So when they approved Prop 2, it was $10 billion, right? And $2 billion was for, I think, community colleges, the other 8 for state or K through 12. And I think it was, split 4 and 4 for new construction and modernizations. Well, so the $4 billion for modernizations, before it even passed, there was already $3.5 billion worth of projects sitting and waiting in line. So in order to get more dollars for another modernization project, we would need another state bond to pass, which would be a number of years. So it is potentially down the road to get them in line, but it's not anytime soon.
Will
with that.
some of the Measure J money just go towards those schools that aren't ready to be modernized?
Right, because as you see, right, it's 60 million total that we're
Right.
looking at here, which leaves another 10 left over. And
Okay.
so, yeah.
Okay,
Those dollars, we just kind of haven't decided yet because, it's not another probably 4 years till we would even have all of those
Right.
funds. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they could go. Yeah, we can spend the Measure J dollars without state funds.
Money,
It's
okay.
just
obviously
nicer,
it's better if you
nicer
can,
to get
yeah.
some more. Yeah, exactly.
You mentioned earlier that a project has to go through all kinds of state Have any of these already been through any of those?
Yes, all of the projects, all of the modernization projects have been approved through DSA, which is the Division of State Architect. And all 8 of them are then sitting obviously with OPSC. So they are ready to go basically. So as soon as we get that funding, we're ready to bid those out. That's actually what we've been working on over the last 6 to 8 months is one thing we do with the construction management company that we've hired is they take the architectural plans and they do what they call a constructability review. So, an architect designs a project based on here's what we want to do, but then the construction management company comes in and gets their feet on the ground and, opening closets and climbing on roofs and all these sort of things. And what they're looking for is like the things that maybe the architect didn't see by not being there. And so that's how they've built their their cost projections, is they really dig in and look at what's it going to take to get things done. And so part of that is also getting everything, the documents ready to go out to bid. And so Baldy Mesa and Chaparral, we're bidding those projects together because they have a lot of similar work to be done, a lot of concrete and restrooms and that sort of thing. And we're looking at probably before December bidding those projects out. Serrano, the first thing we have to do is interim housing because we're going to be displacing students in classrooms and that sort of a thing. So we have that actually out already, looking at what those costs are for that. And so the Serrano modernization itself, we'd be looking to start that project in like May or June. That one would actually start. Pinion Hills is probably going to also be bid out around the first of the year, January or February, to start in the summer. And so the Serrano one, we've received the notice that we're getting the state funding. That one we received back in the middle of last year. And anytime now within the next month or so, we should actually be getting those dollars. For Chaparral and Baldy Mesa, probably about 2 months ago, we got our 90-day notification from OPSC. So OPSC is the arm that approves the funding on the projects. They gave us, again, a couple months ago, the 90-day notification. So probably somewhere within the next, there's a 90-day notification, and then you get another notification after the 90-day notification. And so it takes longer than 90 days, but they are in the process of being approved for funding. And then probably a month ago, we received the information that we would get Pinion Hills and Quail Valley. We got the 90-day notification for those, right? So we wait in line forever, and then suddenly we have almost too many projects going on. But one of the strategies that we were looking at with these projects was, the funds don't go all out the door at one time, right? So, just because the project, Baldy Mesa is $10 million, we don't pay $10 million up front. We pay as the work is done. So if it's taken a year and a half, 2 years to complete, that $10 million is not going out the door right away. And so our plan was, if we get them started, we have the dollars in Measure J, and we even have some Fund 01 money where if we needed to, we could front some of the 60% from the state so that we don't have to wait, right? Because the sooner we go, it's actually saving us money, right? Because there's a whole bunch of other people who are going to start going out for projects because they're getting their Prop 2 money as well. And the more you get that, then the construction companies get busy, their costs go up. So we figure the more we can get out there sooner, we can keep our costs down as much as possible. Makes sense? Yes.
Can you give me an example of when 01 money would be appropriate to set aside and become part of the building?
Well, it would be almost like borrowing it. So if we needed to spend money from fund balance in Fund 01, because we hadn't yet received the money from OPSC and we didn't have, maybe enough in Measure J, then it would almost be like a loan. So we'd spend the money from Fund 01, and then as we received the money from OPSC, they would pay back Fund 01. Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah. So.
But is that movement, when somebody's just asking you to look at the budget, is that clear that that's money that's just being borrowed?
Yes, yeah. There's a whole
You know what I'm
process to
saying.
move money from a fund. Yeah.
Okay.
That's how that expenditure would be designated from Fund 01. And then when the money comes into Fund 35, which is the state match fund, then that was what that expenditure would be there, is to pay for the expenditures that happened over here. Yeah.
So it doesn't appear, when you're looking at the general fund budget, it doesn't appear as a deficit? Or is it?
In Fund 35? No, it
So
wouldn't appear as a,
It's understood that that's money that's just.
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah.
Do you have to know that, or is that part of the conversation? Like, do you have to, is that a formula that you know just because you're the CBO, or is that common knowledge when you're looking at those budgets or those?
Yeah, we would, it works with the county, right? In order to move money from one fund to another, we have to go through the county. So yeah, as we spend those dollars in Fund 01, if we needed to, they get coded according to the project. So, there's a nice 26-digit account code that goes with every transaction that we have. So it would show that this is part of, the Quail Valley modernization. These are, construction fees or architect fees or whatever it is. So that would all be coded in Fund 01. And then that's what we would be requesting of the county. Hey, here's all our expenditures that we want you to then, reimburse this fund to that fund for those expenditures.
I'm thinking of the layperson who's trying to see how much funds you have for operations. And is it clear when you're looking at that's something it's not really an expenditure, that's just the use of the money?
Which one? The money, the use in Fund 01?
01, right.
Yeah, and actually, what we would be spending is money that's been set aside by the board. The board has actually set aside in the fund balance for Fund 01, $17.5 million for facilities projects.
So that was out of the general fund budget?
Yes, out of the general fund.
So
yes.
out of I don't want to say books, because I know that's got their own fund too, but out of salaries of the same general fund that funds that it's okay to do that?
Yes, because it's in fund balance. So it's not in the annual, if there's $150 million in annual revenue from ADA and, $150 million in expenses, it's not out of that. There's fund balance. So there's been money that's built up over the years in surplus. And so there's a fund balance in Fund 01. Yeah.
Okay.
So. And part of what that was actually a redesignation. The board, the district has debt, COP debt, because we've never passed a bond. And so the only way to do facilities construction was to go into debt. So the district has certificates of participation. Basically, it's a way for a district to borrow money. And so there is about $5 million in annual payments towards that debt. And so the district had set aside money in Fund 01 in the event that the general operating revenue couldn't make those payments. So they had set aside $12.5 million for that. But one of the things that we did when I got here was we shifted the payment of those debts from the general fund to CFD revenue that we receive, which is a separate pot of revenue. So it's no longer a burden on the general fund. And what that did then is the board decided that, hey, we've set that side of money aside for something. Let's move that over to facilities, and we just added another $5 million to it because that was available there. And there's a big need, right? We passed Measure J, $70 million. We're right? You see $100 million there with the state match, but our facilities master plan identified $450 million worth of work that needs to be done district-wide. So we're just scraping the surface even with this, which is why the board set aside those additional dollars to try and help that whole process.
I have a question.
Yes.
The construction company that you hired, obviously they're looking at the plans to sort of make sure that they match what you want to be doing, like there's nothing left out. But are they also providing project management for each site?
Yes, they are. This isn't the general contractor. This is the construction management company.
Right.
Yeah.
So they're the project managers of this site.
For each of these
Yes.
modernizations. Yeah. And so as we bid these out, we'll bid them out. What we're going to do is it's called CM multi-prime. So construction management multi-prime. So rather than bidding out to one general contractor, we have a construction management company and we bid it out to the prime trades. And so it gives us a little bit, we have sort of that advocate on our side in the construction management company, and rather than us dealing directly with a general contractor. Yeah. So.
Who is it?
Ledesma Meyer. And that's, it leads into, we have with us tonight, Andy Bilodeau. Andy is just recently became our director of, it's a big mouthful, facilities, reprographics, and warehouse. So she oversees our reprographics department and the work within our warehouse, but then she's also a director of facilities. And so Andy is working with the construction management company. She's working with DSA, she's working with OPSC. She'll be the one who's doing a lot of the accounting, putting in all those wonderful codes to create the nice reports that we'll be able to bring here for you guys. And one thing, we're not paying her salary out of any of the bond funds. Potentially, right? They had said that's allowed, but we're not doing any of that.
Who is doing the in-house accounting?
Well, yeah, no, that's primarily Andy who's going to be doing,
But we're
doing
not paying her. Is there
No.
anybody in-house we are paying? Because it says we can pay somebody.
Right.
But we're not.
We're not.
I just wanted to go on, right? We are paying her. I want you to know.
Well, yes. We're using Fund 01.
Because with money like that, that's not a volunteer job.
That's right. But yeah, it's going out of the general fund, not out of the proceeds here, just to maximize those funds for facilities. So kidding aside, just want to make sure you heard that. We're real pleased. And she's got a long history too with facilities as well, right?
Yeah.
It proceeds itself very successful. So we're excited about that.
Well, I didn't even introduce myself, actually, right? I'm Bill Flynn. I'm the CBO. I've been here for about a year and a half with Snowline, but I've lived in Phelan since my birth in 1971. So I went to Phelan Elementary School, graduated from Serrano in 1989. I've been in education my whole career. I just never worked in Snowline. My parents did. My mom was Pinion Hills Elementary. My dad worked here at Serrano, and so I have a long. My sister was and her husband were here at Serrano for a long time as well. So I have a long history in the community, just a short stint of working in Snowline.
That's best for last week.
Right? Yeah. I had to get myself prepared for it, right? So, and I came in at the right time, right when we pass a bond. So there's lots of fun stuff to do. So this is a lot, and then there's even more when you start spreading this out over the years as we're looking at things. But one thing to know about almost all of these numbers is every one of them will change. Right? Because these are all our estimates at this point. And so as we start bidding the actual projects out, then we're going to get, the real dollars of what everything is going to cost. So.
And Bill, do you mind if you just give everyone perspective of how long these projects have been in line too? I think that sometimes is surprising for people to find out how long it's been.
More than 40 years?
Serrano is more than 4 years. Yes. Yeah.
I'm glad you're on the top of the list now.
Right. The three at the end have been the shortest amount of time, right? With Pinyon Mesa and Phelan. So, don't know when those will get approval, but those are already designed and ready to go once we do that. But we're not starting those three at this point unless we get notification.
Have they been through those two offices?
Yep. Yeah.
They have.
Yeah. They're done with DSA and they're sitting in line with OPSC. So they're part of the $3.5 billion of the $4 billion. But you just never really know exactly when something's going, because you'd say, well, OPSC publishes a list at every one of their meetings of all the projects that are waiting in line and the estimated costs. So you would think you could just kind of calculate up, but as soon as they approve a chunk, then they go in and do some recalculations and all of those numbers change, right? And so you can't exactly see where you are in the list other than knowing, sort of by date. Yeah. So that's because we were kind of surprised with Pinyon Hills and Quail that they went as quick as they did. So things are moving a little bit faster up there at the state, which is nice. And I had one last slide. If Bob, you want to move on to that one, if there's no more questions on this. And I just gave a brief look at the 4 that we're kind of starting here very soon as to what exactly they're doing. It doesn't really give it justice to all the details, right? Like, Serrano upgrading of multiple portables. Well, that's kind of replacing, I think, about 23 portables towards the back of the campus. So it's a pretty huge, and in conjunction with that is a new CTE multi-classroom building that's replacing some existing just portables that are being used right now. Reconfiguring the front parking. So you all know right up in the front right there, right? It's not really adding as many parking spaces as we would need, but it is adding a few, and it's rechanging how you would come in, the pickup and the drop off. So it's quite a extensive amount of work right in there.
It's not fun.
Yeah. Unfortunately, there's not enough land there to get more parking out of it, but it will get a little bit more. And then redesigning the front office. Again, that's a huge redesign. You'll actually be coming in through the front of the building rather than walking around. And it's going to take up a couple of classrooms so that all of administration can be in the front. Right now, we have different parts of administration scattered throughout the building, along with ASB. So they'll all be up there in that front building. So it's a pretty big redesign of that front office. And then the boys' locker room is getting completely gutted and redone because it hasn't been redone since I used it. So, yeah. And then there's extensive what's called path of travel work. You're going to see that on all the modernizations. That's the thing with any modernization that we do. Anytime we go and we do something up with the state, we have to get stuff up to code. And a huge portion of that is what's called path of travel. So path of travel is ensuring that there is a path of travel from the point of work that you're doing basically to the street. So if you redo a classroom in the back of the campus and you go through DSA will say you've got to have path of travel to the street. So you can have a huge long thing that you have to do for a single thing that you're doing. And so basically it's redoing much of the concrete work all throughout this. So that whole middle quad, all of that is going to be redone, the concrete work in there. Because a compliant path of travel is that it can't, in the direction that you're walking, it can't be more than an 8% grade, and side to side, it can't be more than a 2% grade. So basically a 2% grade means if you can see a slant, it's not compliant. So with all the projects, there's a large amount of path of travel that has to get done. Also with several of them, it's redoing of restrooms, because what was compliant 10 years ago, a stall being, 3 feet 6 inches wide, now has to be 3 feet 8 inches wide or something like that, right? And so you have to redo a lot of that. So in Baldy Mesa, there's the upgrading of the restrooms. They're getting new PA, bell, fire alarm systems, relocating the bus drop off. That's a huge one. I don't know if you're familiar with Baldy Mesa Elementary School, right? Right now the bus drops off over in front of the multi-purpose building on the side street over there. This is bringing it out to Baldy Mesa Road, and so that whole front where people park along the street there and all of that will be the new bus lanes out there. And it's actually, we're working on that because in the original design that was submitted, it could fit 7 buses. Well, we have 11 that go there, and so we had to redesign it to fit the 11 buses. They're redoing the playground area, and the field is all getting redone. And they're adding a new playground blacktop area in the back of the campus. A lot of the portables are getting new ramps, and a lot of the blacktop is getting redone. And of course, extensive path of travel and restroom work is getting done. Pinion Hills, a lot of that is the HVAC, upgrading the parking and drop-off area. Of course, a lot of path of travel, redoing the amphitheater that is there and putting in a shade structure over it, upgrading restrooms, new PA, clock, bell, fire alarm systems. Those are all part of that project. And then Chaparral is, again, a lot of path of travel. There's path of travel down to the field that's down there. And then against restrooms, adding some more restrooms in up there, shade structure, HVAC unit replacement. So those are kind of a big picture piece of those modernizations. And then the other ones, as we continue to have the construction management company working on, we'll get more of the details of what those are.
All right.
Lots. Questions?
So if the public asks us, if they know that we're on this committee and they ask us for information about, oh, well, what are they going to do here? What are we going to do there? To whom should we refer them?
You can send them my way. You can send them to Dr. Holman. You can send them to Andy. Yeah, any of us can answer those questions.
Will there be a website?
Yeah. As we begin, especially as we begin some of the construction, one working on architects, getting us some, those nice renderings of, what it will look like when there's, everything done, and then also taking pictures as we go, kind of see all of that and beginning to publish that information out there. Yeah.
One more question. So I would hope that the press is interested that we're on the road. The approved Measure J. So who is going to communicate that we've now, gotten things on the road, and is somebody going to fill them in on all the stuff we've been filled in on?
Yeah, been on that. Yes, so it's such a great question there, and specifically, we have a marketing expert, if you will, Robert Chacon, who's behind the scenes right here. He's one individual who, I say behind the scenes, I mean, literally,
Not
running
behind that desk.
Yeah, not behind that desk. I apologize, but running the whole smart board right now.
Oh,
so
literally.
he oversees our marketing. Yeah, so he oversees our marketing. But the other piece too is we are going to be documenting all of the work being done over video and ensuring that we get that information out on a regular basis once that starts. And it should be relatively soon. So we're really looking forward to that approach so that we can have everyone see it on a regular basis. What we found just from our research in this community is little bite-sized chunks and videos sells well, for lack of a better way of saying. I say sells, but certainly is met well for sure. And so our commitment ultimately is to ensure that while we'll have the renderings like was mentioned before, I think seeing the progress is going to be incredibly important. I feel like that's what I heard in what you're saying is how do we, remember right, make certain that people see the progress that amounts to moving toward what those renderings show, because those renderings are exciting for certain, but so too I think is growth, and I think that's what we're endeavoring to do. So it's a great question for sure. Looking forward to doing it. It's going to be soon. It'll be soon, right? It was
Yes.
mentioned earlier that we might see that really soon here within even the school year, right? Toward the end.
Yeah, yeah. There'll be some beginning work on the interim housing for Serrano, and then those 4 will probably all be starting at least in the summertime in June. Yeah, we'll actually tear the ground up.
Can this funding only be used for modifications, or that's just because that's what's needed the most for now?
Yeah, the Measure J was primarily for modernization work.
Do any of the modernizations allow for like more students or bodies or expansion of campuses? It seems like no.
They don't. Yeah, they are. And that is separate projects and things that we do have going on, but those aren't Measure J funds. So, we do have a new elementary school that we're working with DSA right now to get approved and get that in line with OPSC, but it wouldn't utilize Measure J funds, yeah.
Because they have to be 25 years old.
Well, no, this is for a new school. We actually are looking
Okay,
at
but I
a
mean,
new
Measure
elementary school.
J has to be for,
No, modernization so getting in line with OPSC for a modernization, the school has to be 25 years old.
Okay.
Measure J has to be spent just according to what Measure J says it can be spent on. Yeah.
Any other
What
questions?
about high school?
A new high school? Yes, yeah. We have some properties, but we don't have any current designs in progress yet for a new high school. But yeah, we have several pieces of property throughout the district.
It was a big old giant piece of property about to get a whole bunch of houses built.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
a lot of houses.
Yes.
And it's in Snowline.
The tough part is that the way state facility funding for schools works is that you have to have that 50%, right? So a new high school would probably be $100 million at least. So we would have to come up with $50 million to do that. And so either through bond dollars, which are already spent, it would be another bond, or through borrowing, which then hits the general fund potentially. But we are, yeah.
So they build more properties and don't give the schools any money to build more schools.
They do give dollars, right? There are school fees that come in that are supposed to sort of be calculated to cover half your cost, the 50% cost, right? But unless you have a huge development come in, you don't really have enough coming in to do that. So it is another source, and that is a part of it as we're looking at things, but it's oftentimes not adequate, unfortunately. Yes.
I have another question. So who requested, if you need another school or another classrooms or more classroom for the school, who requested? You, Mr. Freeman?
Good question. Yeah, so there are actually processes that Bill can explain to you about that. Maybe you can talk a little bit more about the school that we have going. And then I think what Anais is saying is, what Member Morales is saying is the idea of how we get more buildings at a school site for space.
For space, if you
Yeah.
have many students,
Mhm.
you request more classrooms or?
Yeah, we can talk about both of those.
Okay.
Yeah, the work that we're doing, I want to talk about that we did with our principals as well.
Yeah. I mean, we're working with our site administrators on what their needs are, and so as to what they need, and so there's the ability to just add a portable at a school site. That doesn't have to go through OPSC for funding. It has to go through Division of State Architect. But it requires then path of travel and all of those types of things. So actually some of these modernizations are going to help us out in that term. So as we're looking at like Pinion Hills Elementary School, we know Pinion Hills they're all impacted, but Pinion Hills is very impacted space-wise. And so with the modernization, we'll be doing a lot of path of travel work. And so then adding in maybe a new classroom is going to be less expensive than if we weren't doing the modernization work, because we'll already be doing some path of travel work. So some of it's going to help us add in classroom space, but it's still a process to do that. Yeah. And the new elementary, the location is out towards Vista Verde, because that's obviously where we have a huge portion of our growth. And so it would alleviate a little bit from Vista Verde, but primarily, from Baldy Mesa as well. Yeah.
Bill, a question, or I guess a comment. One of the things that we discussed when we were formulating the bond and doing the bond was because there was so much disinformation that was surrounding the bond, that we really talked about how we could communicate to the community what was going on. And I think I've seen a great increase in communication from all the sites in Serrano, and I love it. I mean, we're getting a lot of communication about what's going on. But I think this committee also needs to have a communication vehicle, whether that be like with Bub or somebody here that would be a liaison with him, so that people understand what the role is of this committee. Going into this, there was a lot of people that thought this committee was making decisions on what that money was going to be spent on and stuff, and that wasn't the case. But for example, the communication that modernization has to be for schools 25 years or older. People are going to wonder why Vista Verde's not on there. They're going to wonder why Heritage isn't on there. And that's because of this, right? So if we communicate that, that will be helpful, I think, in getting people to understand. Because, it's not going to be too long. I mean, we're going to have to, this road is going to be well-traveled. We're going to have to continue to try to secure money, whether that be bonds or whatever. But we want our people to know in the community what we're doing and what is involved with all of that, not just having disinformation out there. It was very frustrating about that, for sure. So I'd love to see us have a liaison with they could put it on the website, and really talk about, what we're doing. And I know all of you will be happy to talk to people if they ask you questions. That's what I, but I just think having somebody to communicate with Bub, if he's going to be the one that does it, would be very helpful.
Well, why don't we put that on our agenda to ask Bub come into the next meeting and see how we can collaborate with him?
Okay.
I mean, rather than just decide it today, let's see how we can work with somebody we've already got in place.
Sounds good.
That's good.
Yeah, I love that.
Any other questions? I have a couple. When's the first check going to get written?
Out of the Measure J bond funds?
Yeah, I mean, that's why we're here.
Yes,
So,
yeah. To date, we haven't written any because we've actually been using the Fund 35, right? We've been using the state money, which, and so probably, I mean, I would imagine as we kind of hit, end of the year, end of the school year, we'll probably start hitting some of those dollars, so that there'll be I don't know the exact timeline, but yeah, potentially by the end of definitely there'll be a bunch in the next school year.
Because we're looking at we should meet again.
Right.
So I don't want to be a twiddle of the thumb committee, but at the same time, when we meet, when do you think there'll be shovels in the ground?
Probably May, June.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. This isn't a question. This is more because I'm a parent. I suppose everybody who comes on our sites will be background checked.
Yes.
I mean, if they come on, they interface with our kids, we'll know who
Absolutely.
they are. Okay. Yeah. When will we start to see our first reports?
We'll actually get, just because the dollars were received in 24-25, so our auditor did the required audit for those funds. So like in the presentation by March 31st, they'll have that information of, basically the money coming in. So that would be the first report from the auditor.
Okay.
Yeah.
This committee's not due to do a 2025 report, right? I mean, we have nothing to report, so.
Yeah, it would be kind of just, the first 29.8 was
I
received.
Through this, I could sign something now and do it great.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The big report that would come from the audit would be the next school year. Yeah.
All right. That said, do you guys feel we need to meet for 2020 again this year? Do you guys want to meet just to get more education? You guys want to meet? There's no numbers being presented to us. There's nothing for us to approve. There's nothing for us to evaluate.
I can wait. So maybe you said in the summer, like basically at the end of the school year is when stuff is gonna really start moving.
Yeah.
So maybe we can just meet before the school year ends, like May-ish or something, just to kind of before the summer.
Are there other thoughts? What do you guys think about February? Just to kind of get our bearings, just to see where we're at, kind of get our ground.
I think there's value in us meeting maybe, another time before then,
Okay.
kind of for a checkup on where things are.
Thank you, Ben.
I think it's a little, if we meet, I think I see benefit in that. February, sometime 6 months from now, somewhere in there, so that we're not waiting all the way to the end of the year. That'll give us time maybe meet with Bub and get some, marketing strategies put together for the committee, communications and things like that. So I would see benefit to that.
I'd like to hear from everybody.
I agree.
I like February as well.
Okay.
Sure.
Yeah.
So what would that February meeting be like? Agenda?
Oh, I think definitely meeting with Bub. If there's anything to report, I think we'd ask Bill to come back in and give us a check has been written, and maybe hear what a process looks like. If you could let us know what, I'd like to know how you put a check request in, just to say this is what it looks like and how and what the board would like from us. So I think meeting with Bub and talk about how we strategize and what we've talked about, maybe what your reports would look like. I don't know if we can ask this. I don't know if we can do a site visits. I want to be more than just money. I want to know. I want to be able to report to constituents that this is what the paint looks like.
Is that legal under the Brown Act for us to do
If we do it together.
a tour?
Yeah. I mean, I think we all do it together through.
Then we would just call
Yeah, we can establish that right here, right
Yeah.
in here, and make that decision. You nailed that there. Chairperson Funk, we can absolutely establish that. And so I would just ask kind of the when you'd like to do that, because if we're talking about February, I think February would be a really good time for us to do what we talked about relative to marketing. That's what I heard you mention. Also, you're going to get an update relative to the progress we're making on our facilities. You may even want to hear at that point in time from our construction management team too. We can bring in our construction management individual, give you all that update going into the shovels in the ground. It might be a time. And so it'd just be a question as to when you would want to see the facilities. You could do kind of the before and during and after as well.
Let's not do the site visit in February because it's cold. Let's start thinking about the February meeting, about what we'd like to see out of our meetings. Let's not do February 2nd because I don't want to live that day over and over again. If you guys know the movie reference. Do Mondays work good? How about go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say that seemed to be the most popular one when we were making the rounds there. Does that work? I think I appreciate you mentioning that again, because it was tough to find a day. It seemed like that fell in a good space for everyone.
Just to get it on the calendar for the school district, why don't we say 6 p.m. February 9th?
So there's no school that day?
Oh,
So how about the 23rd?
it's my birthday. So I'm going to call privilege on that one. So does the 16th work well?
The 16th.
Oh, it's President's Day.
That's also
Right?
no school that day.
So it looks like it may be Groundhog's Day.
February
So,
3rd.
yep. So
February 3rd.
About it, yeah.
yeah,
That was a bad joke.
Do February
That's a bad
30th.
joke. Yeah. It's kind of like your February 2nd.
Yeah, February 2nd. Is this building open instead of available that day? 6 p.m. February 2nd.
He said, we'll do it over again, like you said. Right?
Yeah,
We
yeah.
literally did do that over again.
I just have a question.
Please.
I noticed that towards the back, there's some information about Robert's rules. How formal do you want this group to be? Do we need to make a motion to schedule a next meeting, have a second, and vote? I would think that's probably how the process is supposed to go, no? Or can, I mean, just so it's a little more in line with how school boards are done and other ad hoc committees that, things need to be motioned, they need to be seconded, they need to be voted on. So then we're clear who is, because there may be a no, right? And so that needs to be clear. So maybe there needs to be a roll call sometimes if there's contentious pieces and things. So I think we need to maybe talk about that a little bit, what the formality is as far as rules go. Because I know having worked under Robert's rules, it can be a little cumbersome at first. However, it does keep meetings on track. It keeps people on task. And it also allows for when votes are cast, it's very clear what you're voting on. And then any motions or changes to those motions are clear. Those are voted on. And then again, if you need a roll call vote because maybe somebody wants to get everybody on record, whatever the case might be, that's very clear. Is that kind of what the expectation is? Obviously, we're not going to follow it to a T because we're not experts in Robert's rules. But I think because it's in here, I think that's something they're looking for, right?
You outlined it very well there, Member Decker, and you got a wonderful individual, truly. I mean, I've had the good fortune of working with him. He knows it very well.
I'm Methodist, so we can go that route.
I having worked in organizations and been a part of big conventions that are run by Robert's rules, I think there's a ton of benefit to it. And I think, again, like I say, it keeps everybody on task.
Sure.
And initially it is somewhat cumbersome, so everybody kind of understands how it goes. But once everybody has a grasp of it, then it keeps us on task. It keeps us from sliding off into areas that aren't germane to what we're talking about at that moment. And it will make meetings happen more efficiently, more quickly. We all have, our time is important to us all. And I don't really plan to spend 5 or 6 hours here. Sometimes if we have to, we do. But my point, I think Robert's rules helps with some of that.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Then here we go. So let's return to.
I motion to have the next meeting on February 2nd.
Let's
6
go.
p.m.
Let's go to F2. So, yep.
I'll second that motion.
Discussion. Seeing none. Call for a vote. Right hand for aye.
Aye.
Left hand for no. Seeing none. The room is secure. All right. All right. That takes us to letter G, future agenda items. Who will set those?
Yeah, and thanks, Chairperson Funk. I think what we have right now is we're going to make certain in the next meeting that we have Robert Chacon to be able to speak to the marketing piece, have him available and be able to address that. And I heard as well as the notion of an update on our facility progress, because quite a number of months will have passed. And I thought I heard there was consensus that Bill Flynn will do just a great of job as he did last time. And we can include our construction management team as well, if that's helpful. But again, I'll turn it back over to you, Chairperson Funk, to facilitate any other requests that we want to have at that meeting.
Yeah, I'd like to open it up this time. What would you guys like to see?
A date for a tour.
A date for a tour. Okay. Others.
I like the idea of the construction management company, similar to the legal counsel. Maybe if they kind of have a similar PowerPoint on how they make the decisions that they make, or how they. I mean, I know we don't want to get in the weeds per se, but it's kind of an overview of what they do and when they put together a project, when they seek a bid, so that we just have a view of how that looks. I mean, obviously, we're not deciders in that. But then if we kind of have an idea what that process looks like, we have a better understanding of the whole process, the whole funding stream process is from their perspective.
That's great.
Yeah. Who again?
The construction management company.
Construction management.
I'd like to know how they pick contractors.
Yeah, I think you'd really appreciate that. I love what all of you are saying. I think you really appreciate Jeff Carter would be probably the one who'd be here. And we'll be more than happy to make that happen if there's consensus. Seems like there is. Trending that way.
I'm interested in making sure that the public is communicated enough that it influences their understanding about what's happening and values the effort and what's being done with the money that they voted in. So there's, abiding by the rules of when you have to tell them. But I'd like to look at opportunities to consider that communication might serve the district well in the future for, respecting those bonds and knowing that it can do something and that those dollars are being used wisely. Just politically, that gives you the voice or the ability to say, we're using those monies that you voted in. So getting at least, whose responsibility is that, and maybe getting a report of how they're doing it or reflecting on how it's being done. I'm not sure what I'm asking for, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think going back with Robert Chacon, the school district itself is going to want to get that message out as well, not just this committee.
Right.
And Dr. Holman's going to want that win as well, and I think the citizens who voted for it are going to want that win as well. So let's start with Robert Chacon and hear what he has to say,
Okay.
and then see if it expands from there if you're comfortable.
Yeah, so he'll tell us what he's doing.
I think,
That's
yeah.
great. Yeah, and just one more
Sure,
piece.
please.
I hang out at the Grind in Wrightwood. I'm retired, I hang out at the ground. That place on Wednesdays is full of about 20 people who treat it as the Cracker Barrel. It's a political hotspot. They're going to be asking me about this. I don't feel competent, or that it's even my role to interpret it. So if you could, and maybe, these other people are representing some, why they've been selected to be on the committee as well. They have people who are going to be checking in on them. So I don't want to, I think that if I say, I don't know, then they're going to lose confidence in the whole process. And I just want to be able to say, call Dr. Holman, that's a good question for him. I don't want to represent any of the answers unless you're telling me I have to, and then I'll ask you to give me some lessons. But I just think they are going to be interested at the Cracker Barrel, not at the Grind on Wednesday, 9:00 if you want to show up.
That's a great invitation to be. First of all, I'll say I'll always be willing to do that as I'm looking at my calendar right now. I bet you Rachel's doing the same thing.
They call themselves the graybeards, so you might have to wear a Santa's beard or something.
Well, I'm a gray hair, that's for
Okay.
sure. So I probably can fit in that way. So always willing to do that. I think too, back to maybe putting two things together from what Member Wright talked about. I think come February, what we'll be able to do is we'll share what we've been doing from a marketing standpoint past, what we're doing presently, and then we'll map out the future with all of you. So I see that as a real powerful piece moving forward. But in the interim, more than happy to make that happen on Wednesday, and maybe we can, whether Bill can make that time as well. We've gone together. I can do it, individually to at least satisfy that piece, but also still work on, like I said, the marketing piece that Chairperson Funk mentioned. We want to make sure out of the school setting, right, out of the school district itself, that we're communicating, and then we'll also work on this work here too. And I think there's some real parallel tracks that will merge as well. They'll be really powerful. So I think, I'm looking over there to Rachel. I can make that time work on Wednesday. I saw my schedule. We'll make that happen right off the bat there. And also look forward in the future for us to really work together to see what all of you are going to recommend will work for this school district. Because I think Janet Molina articulated it beautifully, right? And she was part of the initial efforts with Measure J. And I think the more that we can share the narrative that is what's happening here and what you all know to be true, I think the better for the community. So.
I would just say that, from my perspective and how I'm going to interact with those people that I hang out with and such as, I think a lot of people, as the other member said, thought originally this was a decision-making body, right? We're not decision makers, right? We're overseers, right? And so that's all we're going to be doing. I would just say from my experience, I know when they had the community outreach for this Measure J, I came to Pinion Mesa Middle School. It was myself, my wife, and John Garner were the only people in the entire building when people had a chance to give their opinion about how things should be done. And that was the opportunity to do that. So in some regard, that ship has sailed a little bit. However, I would tell people if they have concerns or they want to talk about it, come to a board meeting.
Yeah.
That's what public comment is for, right? We're not here to, I can tell you what I see and what I know is already going on, but I don't have any control over what is going on. I just have control over making sure that's done appropriately. So I think those people that have that opinion, a little bit, that ship has sailed in some regard. And they didn't take advantage of it when it was there. Because I was one of only 3 at Wrightwood Elementary and one of 3 here in Pinion Mesa. My wife was the other. So we were 2/3 of the amount of people that were here to give input on Measure J projects. So those people that have those concerns, I would tell them, come to the board meeting, speak during public comment, but realize that some of those decisions have already been made and they can't fix that, right? So now what they need to do is support those decisions that are made by the board of directors, by those people that are the experts, and say, I support them in the decision making they make. When my time comes later on to be part of that decision making, I'll take advantage of it. So that's kind of my message to people, and that I'm not in that position. I'm here just to kind of help make sure things are done on the up and up, right? We're not here to make decisions. We're not here to choose the color of the paint and things like that, right? Those are made outside of here. I don't have expertise in that, but I can oversee the work that is done and make sure the spending is done. And so I think that's really the message, at least, that I'm going to put forward. And then send them to people that, like yourself, like Bill, like people that can give them the answers they want, because I won't have them. But again, like I say, I think those people that have those opinions, because I have people, they're friends of mine and such, I tell them all the time. I should have said, and I invited them to those things too. I sent the emails out that you had sent.
Thank you.
The messages on Facebook. And like I say, when we showed up at Pinion Mesa, and it was the principal Wrightwood Elementary, myself and my wife were the only people in the entire building besides the contractor that was there to take input. The only input they got was from the three of us, and John didn't speak much because he's a principal. So most of the input they got at that meeting were from my wife and I.
Thank you for both of you.
And we'll keep public comments available for this committee as well. So if folks want to come, they get a chance to as well. Okay. Well, because we didn't set this agenda, something that I'd like to keep on ours as well is there's no between G and I. Would anybody like to speak? We'll always have an open channel. So does anybody have anything to say from this committee? Okay. Just an open.
We can put the board member comments as typically what we do.
Committee,
We can do that.
Yeah.
Work over there, Rachel. We can do that. Thanks for sharing.
I just want to reiterate what was said earlier. I just want to appreciate everybody for their time. I mean, this is precious money. This is precious resource. A lot of work went into getting this passed. I was on the board when we talked about this early days, and it was a pipe. When we talked about getting a bond passed, we were like, it's never going to happen.
6 times a charm.
Yeah.
That's how many times we tried to get it passed.
Yeah, and there was hostility. I remember saying, hey, we're going to try to get some money, and people like, not forget it, but it's never going to happen. And then it's also not lost on me how much money we receive, but also how much money we have to pay back. This is an expensive tap, and so we need to be vigilant with the amount of money that we spend, how much money it costs us. So we just want to make sure that we're responsible for this. I want to make sure we have the due diligence, and that's really what our responsibility is. And I want the board to know that we look forward to working with them, and Dr. Coleman and your team. And we want the students at Snowline to know that we got their back. It's who we're here to serve. And I think we're all proud community members. Most of us have children who've either gone before or in the service now, and if there's 3rd graders become 12th graders and come back and serve in the community roles. That, you'll sit here one day. Yeah, I didn't believe it for myself, but here we are. So, but those are the things. So if you guys ever want a chance to say anything, you'll have a chance on the agenda in the future. So that said, we move to H.
Motion adjourned.
Second.
Moved and seconded.
Aye.
Raise your hand if you'd like to get out of here. All right. As they say, you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here.
Yeah, I'm like,
All right.
I'm congratulating.